much about internet security, you know, the NSA. I mean, much less just being stalked or the, you know, all sorts of stuff. You probably may have had similar experiences,
Oh,
but
yeah.
you know, a lot of people, especially who have podcasts or have some sort of public voice, a lot of times find themselves in a lot of trouble on the internet.
Yep.
Just because of weirdos, you know. And so the short answer for the mask is just general internet security, along with, you know, just all that stuff. It's the reason we call me Basil.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, and I'm glad that we got at least the basis of that out there, because I don't want new people who aren't familiar with you to, or you know, yeah, I don't want people
to think that I'm going to wrestle them.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I don't want people to think that they can't take you seriously, because for the audience, it's really easy to think that initially, and you know, I mean, just being honest. But you know, I've gotten to know Basil and Gons over the past few years now, and I'm telling you, you're not going to find more credible sources for information and just for how to be a human being. And you know, I don't say that. Regular listeners of the show know that I've probably never said that about anybody, but it's not something I throw out there. But so don't let, you know, just for the audience, don't let the mask throw you and turn the episode off. I mean, if it's really bothering you that much, then maybe it's not your thing. But there's going to be a lot of good content, and we're going to have some laughs too, because like I said before, we have to have a sense of humor about this stuff, or we're not going to make it. I mean, we're going to turn into an extremist on one end or the other. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, you bring up a good point, and just to talk about it a little bit, which is, you know, ever since Canary Cry, maybe not since it started, but you know, maybe about 6 months in, you know, I've always had issues with people not taking me seriously, or you know, being upset that I use the name Basil, or things like that. And actually, it's interesting, because if you listen to some of the first episodes of Canary Cry Radio, like, people will start listening and they'll make their way through the archives of Canary Cry Radio, and they'll find themselves down in the lower episodes, and they discover that I was a completely different, you know, had a completely different attitude, was a lot more serious, was a lot more, you know, I was in my own phase at that point. And, you know, it came to a point that I was getting sucked in to just like this black hole of negativity and depression and anxiety about, I mean, finding out that the whole world is, you know, being run by Luciferian elite groups, taking orders straight from Satan to affect every part of your life, including the food you eat, the water you drink, the entertainment you watch, and even the air you breathe. That can be a little bit much for somebody.
Oh yeah.
And I feel, you know, and God bless your listeners, but I'm sure a lot of them too are finding themselves in that situation. And so, you know, what you're seeing now, I don't necessarily wear the mask as a way to have fun, but just the personality, what I bring to Canary Cry Radio. Gaunt's is obviously on the same train. You know, this is an amalgamation of years of being completely soaked in all this craziness, and the knowledge, and, you know, coming through the darkness and coming out of it. And this is what you get. So if you like it, good. If not, you know, there's a whole bunch of people you could watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I you know, I'm really glad that you're able to come on the show and at least, you know, be honest about it and be serious about it, and show the audience that there is actually a reason behind that. It's not all just fun and games, but we're also not, you know, completely beating this into people's skulls or anything either. So there's a good balance there. And I think that's why I've always really liked you and Gons. I've always been able to really identify with both of you, because you have a great balance. Before we get into like all that stuff, because I could go on for hours about that.
Sure.
As is the tradition in the Sharpening Report realm, your testimony. How'd you come to know Jesus? How'd that lead to what you do today?
Yeah, you know, the testimony. I'm one of those guys who kind of has the boring testimony.
They all say that. They all say that. The boring
well,
testimony is the one that more people can identify with.
Right, I'm sure, and it tends to be that the boring testimony ends up with people like this in the end. I'm just kidding. Everybody's great. So yeah, I mean, born to a Christian home. My father was actually a pastor. I've shared that before. Well, he was a pastor, then wasn't, then is. Anyways, that's a whole nother story. But you know, obviously, as at the ripe old age of 3 years old, when I could say the words, I accepted Jesus Christ into my heart. And of course, it's been just a downhill coast the whole way, and it's all been easy, and I've had no doubts and no trouble along the way. That's what I would like to have said, but actually, the story is, you know, was a Christian, went to church my whole life. Actually, there was a period where my family stopped going to church, and I had a great friend who the family really kind of took me in and kept bringing me to church, even though my parents at the time were not attending. And that's really, I actually attribute everything in my spiritual life to that family, because they kept bringing me to church. And because I kept going to church and kept talking to, you know, my mom and dad about Jesus, and, you know, they were still believers, but they were, you know, they were just fed up with the whole, anything that had to do with religion. But I believe in their heart, they still love Jesus. But still, and so me coming back and talking to them, that was the only reason that they ever came back to church. The only reason they ever got back into the ministry. And so anyways, I go through high school, you know, getting into a little trouble here and there. But basically, you know, I don't know. People who knew me when I was younger say that I was kind of an enigma, because the pastor's kid obviously is always the most rebellious or getting in the most trouble. And I got into a little bit of trouble. I'm not a saint, but I always considered myself a Christian, always loved Jesus, always prayed, you know, and not just pray, like say my prayers at night. It was instilled into me, like, you pray all the time. You know, if you're bored, that's what you're doing. So praying under your breath and all this stuff, and just even in your mind. And so I'm just really grateful that that family back then kept bringing me to church, because, and that should be, I want that actually to stick with people, because if you're one of those families where, you know, you're sort of a Christian family going to church, maybe you're picking up other kids from other families who the family isn't going to church. I mean, I've done that, and it's exhausting. It is exhausting. I've done youth ministry. I've done all that. It is exhausting, but I wouldn't be here today. I might not be a Christian. I could be anywhere if it wasn't for that family who kept bringing me to church. So if you're one of those families, I mean, God bless you. Keep doing it, because you're really making a change in some lives. Anyway, so further on, went to college, went to a Bible college, did the whole thing, got into a little trouble there too, getting a little trouble all the way through. And then it was there that I started Canary Cry Radio, so just shortly after college. And I only bring that up not to plug Canary Cry Radio in my testimony as a sale.
Go ahead and plug it as much as you want.
No, but it really isn't, because Canary Cry Radio and getting into, and I believe that once you start learning, you know, really focusing on Bible prophecy and kind of opening your eyes to how exactly the world is running. I mean, that is a huge life moment.
Yeah.
I mean, that really changes your life, especially for somebody who didn't have like a life-changing getting saved by Jesus story. You know, because a lot of people have I got saved when I was 3, and then I, you know, fell away and then came back when I was old enough to know what it was. And I didn't really have that sort of roller coaster. It was always a part of my worldview. But what really changed my life was getting into this Bible prophecy, figuring out what was really going on with the world, and applying that to, biblical knowledge and scripture and research. And that's when my mind was really blown. And, the reality and the urgency of Jesus Christ was a little bit more real to me than, kind of the slow hum of Jesus, the low, bass hum that had been going on through my whole life, which I'm very grateful for. So yeah, I mean, and I've been very blessed to get emails from people who have similar stories, which is, they may have been a Christian for a while and kind of just fell into some religiosity of it. And then once they either listen to Canary Cry or listen to you or found Tom Horn or found, any of the dozens of people, then that really solidified the reality of what a relationship with Jesus Christ actually means in the real world today. Not just when I die and go to heaven, but what is actually going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And in those terms, I can really relate to that. I mean, everybody knows my testimony, so I won't get into all that. But I was one of those ones that, I was saved real early. I don't know if it really took or not. I have no clue. If I had to guess, I mean, if we're judging by fruits, then no. But then my true salvation would have happened in my 20s. But yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for and it's no, I'm not trying to down my upbringing or anything. And just like you, I'm so appreciative of the Baptist church that I was grown up in. I don't really know if I consider if I had to pick a denomination, if I had to pick, it'd probably be Baptist. But I'm non-denominational because I'm right. Just, it is what it is. But still, I mean, I'm so appreciative of my family and church that because I would not have known Jesus had it not been for them keeping on the track towards him. Because the rest of my life, the rest of my early childhood, totally screwed up. A lot of really bad stuff happened, and it would have been really easy for me to fall into unbelief or just completely reject Jesus altogether.
Right.
So when God decided it was time that I was old enough or mature enough to accept it, he brought me into all this. And that the very beginning of that was maybe a year or it was a little, I don't know the exact time. It was a little while before I started, really deciding I was going to write and, do all the stuff that I'm doing now. But so it was still relatively later on in my life, but at the time I had a really good neighbor who was a deacon of the church that we went to, and it was non-denominational, but it was, kind of Baptist based. And, I've brought him up on the show before, and usually, and I kind of do want to clear this up, so I'm going to use this episode to do it. But I've told the story before how I was talking with the deacon of a church that I used to go to, and I was trying to talk about prophecy, and basically he said, well, we don't really have to know that stuff because we're not going to be here anyway. And that upset me, and I didn't let him know or anything because I didn't feel right about that. But right. Usually that's the end of the story. And I don't really go into, because usually when I tell that story, I'm trying to prove a point that prophecy is important. And, we shouldn't, even with a pre-trib rapture view or something, we shouldn't fall into that line of thinking. That's usually when I bring that story up, the point that I want to make, that I'm trying to make. But I'm regretful to admit that I've never really got into all the good things that man did for me and my family. I mean, he and his family were a really good model, because me and my wife, Christina, we had just gotten married. I mean, they actually helped us get the church and get everything ready for us to get married. They were the model that we needed for how a family should run, regardless of his views on prophecy. Everything else was spot on, and yeah. I wouldn't be the man I am today without him. So I really want to make that clear. And I feel bad, but I've never done that. So
Yeah.
If he's listening, yeah.
Get some healing.
Amen.
Some restoration in this house.
That's right. So if he's listening or watching, I'm not going to say his name. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but honestly, I really appreciate everything you've done for me, and I wouldn't be who I am today without it.
Yeah.
All right. So all that being said.
Well, and just to say too,
go right ahead.
And I think that's an important thing for people to know. And I do want people to come away with this, if they're going to come away with something listening to some guy in a mask. And that is, there's a huge emphasis put on going out and winning souls. And that's good. We're called to do that. Everybody should do that. But there is such an importance on doing what you can to work with people who are already saved, just to keep them in the flock. Yeah. Because like I said, you might be in a completely different place if you didn't have that influence of that Christian man. I probably wouldn't be a Christian. Honestly, if I had not kept going to church with that family, first, I'd probably be some new age guru guy.
Same here.
And my parents probably wouldn't have gotten in the ministry, and all the people that they touched wouldn't have happened. So because of this family continuing to bring me to church, to Awanas, all that stuff, they are the reason that I'm talking to you now. They are the reason that Canary Cry exists. They're the reason that my parents are still in ministry. My mother goes all around the world doing missions. And I only say this to say that if you're one of those people, or you're one of those families who is doing that, or is faced with a decision to do that, or if you're not doing it, go out and do it, because it's literally changing the world. Just taking some 6-year-old little butthead to church every week. I mean, I was a pretty snotty kid. I had a mullet and everything. I was serious business.
Yeah, I was pretty messed up too, and it was because of people that were willing to take the time and put up with me and have patience and learn to have patience. It was because of people like that it's the only reason I'm doing what I'm doing now. Wow, what a great way to start a show.
There you go. That's how you do it.
Yeah, no kidding. You start off saying that it might be a boring testimony, but I'm telling you, those honestly are the more powerful ones. And wow. Well, for the audience, like I said, we got so many viewer questions. Basil and I talked before the show. We decided we've never done this on the Sharpening Report, but I'm glad to be able to do it, because honestly, we've never had the questions to do it. But for the audience, if you want the chance to send viewer questions in, you can go to the Sharpening Report Facebook group. Anytime there's a new guest, I'll pin a post and give you the opportunity to send in questions. And like I said before, usually I get 5 or 6, or sometimes a little more. But I mean, this has been overwhelming. It's amazing. We've got a lot of people that want to know a lot of things, and they're not all, they're not all just like joke questions. Some of them are, because. Yeah, what are you gonna? Well, honestly, what I love about Canary Cry is you guys have utilized something I don't think any other show in the fringe Christian realm has really been able to tap into, and that is the power of the inside joke. Oh my gosh, you guys have nailed it, and because the way that you do it, I don't think any of that's scripted. You just talk naturally on the show, and you and Gons are friends, so it just comes up. And all these inside jokes come up out of that. I mean, my one episode that we were talking about before, all the stuff with Gary Busey.
Gary Busey.
Yeah.
You got your telephone booth. Even from earlier ones, one of my favorite inside jokes is, we've got Kickstarter. We're always talking about starting new Kickstarters. We've never done a single Kickstarter, but and the Wormicorn.
That was actually the very first question that we got. I should mention it before you continue.
Okay, let's do it.
So again, real quick for the audience, the Sharpening Report on Facebook group, join. All right, so
Canary Cry Radio, Facebook, go like it.
Go like it. Yeah, so Becky wants to know if you still believe in the Wormicorns on the moon.
The Wormicorn, for those of you who don't know, When in one of our earlier episodes, we did an episode about the moon. It's called the Moon episode. And yeah, you know, there was some speculation about a creature named the wormicorn, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a worm with a unicorn horn. As far as do I have a firm belief in the wormicorn, you know, there are some ancient texts that mention a beast that could be interpreted as a wormicorn living on the moon. I think it's an interesting topic of study. I think it's relevant to the keeping an open mind to the possibilities of what actually might be going on in this world. I personally have never seen a wormicorn, but if they do exist, I will definitely do my best to take one in, become its mother, and raise it to its full state.
Not its father.
No. I'm your mother now, little one.
You know, you've always given off that motherly vibe. I mean, I've always thought of you as more of a mother than a brother.
I'm so maternal.
Yeah. Oh man, fantastic. Well, we have a Conrad sent in a bunch of questions, so I'm just going to go through those, and until I say that it's somebody else, these are all Conrad's questions.
Okay.
So the first thing he wants to know, he wrote in, what does Basil think the mark of the beast will be? Will it be an invisible tattoo, microchip, or something way more advanced?
Yeah. At this time in my research and discovery, I'm a little bit more convinced that it will be a DNA thing. Kind of referring to Doug Hamp and a lot of other guys who have talked about it. I do believe that the human DNA, that the enemy has a mission to corrupt that DNA, to change the image, and you know, there's been so much talk about chips and technology and tattoos and things. It very easily could be, but I do believe something will have to do with DNA and changing it. A lot of people don't really understand how easy it is to change DNA. It sounds impossible. It sounds like you know, the very fundamental makeup of our being shouldn't be that easy to change, but it actually is. And I believe that it will have something to do with that.
Yeah, I agree too. And I know he didn't ask me this question, but that's something that I've, you know, growing up, my church didn't shun prophecy or anything, but it wasn't really, it just wasn't in the forefront. You know, I mean, nobody, because I've always loved the idea of prophecy and Bible prophecy and stuff. And, you know, I was never discouraged from pursuing that. But back then, as this would have been back in like the late 80s, 90s, or early 90s, somewhere around there. Back then, it was going to be like a barcode, and
Right.
then that kind of turned into like the RFID chip, and you know that kind of evolved. But I think the most plausible out of everything that I've ever heard, and I mean there are a lot, is what you said. It's going to be something with DNA, and there's a lot of reasons to believe that we could easily take a whole show getting into.
Right.
But I'm sure the viewers of this show are probably already familiar with that. You know,
right.
Idea.
And a good point to make, I think, is you know, the scriptures talk about how you won't be able to buy or sell, you won't be able to do anything like that. So we intrinsically think that it's something that has to do with money, like it has to be involved in the transfer of money.
Right.
I believe that it may be a situation where, you know, maybe just as an example, that you need to get this vaccine, and by law you need to get the vaccine or else you're quarantined. And so if you get the vaccine, you know, something in the vaccine changes your DNA, and then you're allowed to go about and live in public life and buy and sell and do all those things. But if you don't get the vaccine, then you're sent off, you know, to prison or to whatever, and you're restricted from those things. You know, I think it's important to be able to kind of expand the theories a little bit, because same thing, we've been hearing chips for decades and decades. And so I think that people get a little bit ingrained in that the mark of the beast intrinsically has to do with the transfer of money. But exactly what the Bible says. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And that's a good segue into Conrad's next question. He asks, when the world goes cashless and the new way to buy and sell is here, should we be using this new tech?
That's the fact of the matter is that you're not going to have a choice. At that point, when cash gets taken out, you're either going to be using it or you're going to be living on the streets or in the wilderness, off the grid. What's up, all my libertarian friends out there? And that's going to be a decision that everybody needs to make. Again, personally, I don't necessarily think that has to be technology. Obviously, if they come out and they're like, all right, cashless society, let me put this needle in your hand and give you a microchip so you can pay, or I guess forearm is another translation, forehead, things like that. I mean, if somebody wants to stick a chip in your forehead so you could go to the Walmart, you should be weary for more than just that reason.
Yeah, no kidding.
So yeah, unfortunately, when we do switch to a cashless society, it's not whether do you take the chip or whatever, if that's indeed what happens. It's at that point a matter of, do you want to live in society at all? Do you want to have money at all? I don't think that they're actually going to jump straight to the microchips or RFID chips. There are companies that have it. It exists. It's actually been implemented in a couple of places. I don't think that's necessarily what's going to be forced on people.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think prophecy, states too that it's going to be more of a. I mean, there's devotion that has to be given to the Antichrist or false god or whatever. So I mean, there's going to be a choice involved there that goes deeper than just the cash thing.
Here's the one thing I will say, and I know this is a big concern, and I think it's the root of the question, which is there's a big fear of being tricked.
That's actually the next question. I'll just read it real quick before you get into your point, because I think that you're about to answer it. Conrad asks, will we know for sure what the mark of the beast will be? Will it be clear that if you take the mark, you deny Yeshua or Jesus, or will it be or will we be tricked into it?
Yeah, I think a diligent Christian will not be tricked, because like prophecy says, there's a willful, denying of Christ and bowing down to the beast and all that sort of thing. Now, that being said, when it comes for you to get that chip in your hand or whatever, look at the fine print, read the iTunes user agreement, because it may say right in the user agreement, accepting this chip and being a part of society means that you will have no affiliation with Christianity. The language will be fancy. I do believe that if they are going to trick you, it'll be something like, you to live in our society, you agree to disconnect all affiliations with ancient religious groups or radical thought groups, which at that point maybe Christianity may be categorized as that.
That's a really, really good point. And I that's something that area that really isn't talked about a whole lot is how because most people that they'll say you're not going to be tricked into it, you're going to know full well what you're doing. But let's say like the Facebook Messenger thing, when I agreed to that, I didn't read that whole thing, but come to find out later, they can alter my images and send texts and stuff like without me knowing. There was a lot that I agreed to unknowingly, yet I still agreed to it. I still had access to the information. So that's an excellent point that you bring up.
Absolutely. So you won't be tricked if you're an effective and diligent human being. So read your user agreements.
Amen. That's why we all got to be diligent. And we all got to be researchers.
And I do believe that it's not an accident that we've been so trained to just agree to every user agreement that pops up.
Yeah, no kidding. That's another area. I honestly, I never thought about that before. That does make a lot of sense now that you bring it up.
Boom, dropping the knowledge.
Absolutely. Conrad also asks, so if this world brings out a new way to buy and sell, e.g. a microchip, do we accept it like we accept credit cards? So do you think it's going to be something similar to that?
I would refer to my last answer. Read the fine print, figure it out. You will know. You're not going to be tricked into the mark of the beast. That's my own opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And at the very least, whatever, because, we have a wide audience, so there's a lot of different belief systems. And at the very least, if something lines up biblically, and I certainly think this does, because, I mean, that would be a deception beyond all deceptions, tricking people without really tricking them. We should at least file it away and consider it, because that might turn out to be true. Yeah. So absolutely. Nathaniel asks something completely different. Will he bless us with some banjo playing?
Oh, goodness gracious.
Put on the spot.
I can play a little bit of banjo. I'll give you a little ditty, one or two here.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Let me go get it.
Absolutely.
I haven't tuned it recently, so we'll see how it sounds.
Exciting stuff. Banjo playing from Basil. I just got to fill the dead air till he gets back. I'm hearing things.
Oh. Okay, so like I thought, it is extremely out of tune. So I'll do it. Instead of taking all the airtime to tune the banjo, I will do...
Oh, how long would it take to tune it?
7 hours.
You are awful.
Let's see. So, what should we sing about?
We?
Yeah.
All right. Are you rhythm or lead?
Give me a topic. Mark of the Beast? Okay, sounds good. Well, when the day comes that you gotta go into your local IRS, make sure to look at the fine print, or else, don't worry about it, else you're gonna get arrested for loving Jesus and praising God, because Antichrist doesn't care about your dog. Yeah. Right?
Right.
I only got those 2 chords on me right now. The rest are kind of scary. So there you go. Antichrist doesn't care about your dog.
Oh my gosh.
All right, there you go, listener.
Who is that? Thank you, Nathaniel, for the question. I'm trying so hard. I can't get through this.
There's an inside joke for your listeners.
There we go.
The Antichrist doesn't care about your dog.
He just doesn't. He's gross and disgusting that way.
He's disgusting. The Antichrist is gross. Yeah.
That didn't sound good at all.
No, I got to get a tuner on that guy. All right, so there you go. What's next?
All right. So next we have, who do we have? We have Patrick. Patrick asks, well, we kind of already went through this, but I'll let you elaborate if you have anything. Patrick asks, the only reason I'm bringing up this question is because this person happened to bring up my favorite guitarist of all time, who is also masked. Patrick asks, why do you hide your face like the guitar player Buckethead?
Just like Buckethead, I've had conversations with Buckethead about this. Internet security. It's the only reason.
Absolutely. That's understandable. All right. Cindy writes in a bunch of questions, so I'll go through those.
All right.
So the next question, I'm not going to say Cindy every time. So
bring it on, Cindy.
Yeah, the next few questions are from Cindy. She writes in first, will he reveal his face?
No.
How about half a face?
No. Next question.
Not even half.
If you see me in a live conference, you will see most of my face.
There you go.
So go to your local biblical prophecy guy and tell him to put on a conference and invite us, and you can see some of my face.
Or people can just go to my Facebook page from the Prophecy Forum Conference. Okay, next question.
Oh, gosh, it's out there.
How much will the two of you laugh throughout the whole show?
Probably an annoying amount. It's probably going to get irritating.
Yeah, more than likely. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
All right, here's a good. Okay, what are his most intense areas of interest?
Oh, that's really good. Right now, I have an intense interest. I don't know. Intense is a strong word, especially when you hear about my interests.
Yeah, it's intense.
Right now, I'm really interested in looking at philosophy, in different philosophies, and I said this recently on a live stream, canarycryradio.com, youtube.com/canarycryradio, and that's because I feel like a lot of ways of looking at the world that have been described in different philosophies help us in constructing what our reality looks like. And that's not just, I don't know, the actual matter of the universe, but also socially. You know, they help you. Right now, I mentioned it again in the live stream. I've been looking into a philosophy in a book called Simulation and Simulacra, which is a book that appears in the Matrix. That's kind of its its big claim to fame. But it really, when you learn, open your mind, expand your mind to ways of perceiving reality, what's real, what's constructed by society that has no basis in actual reality, what what you see on television, what part of that actually refers to reality and what part of it refers to a reality that doesn't actually exist. You know, it gets really complicated in that way. But it really, in part, and now I'm not endorsing the philosophy, I'm not endorsing the book, I'm just saying that's what I've been looking into, just because I've taken some time off from looking at other things. And so that's really interesting. Also, truly understanding the thought processes of the occult, of the occult people. I'm really interested in people and what their perception is and how that's affecting their actions and their beliefs. For instance, a while ago in Canary Cry Radio, we did an episode. It was a flyby called The Victims Elite, which is talking about how even the elite people, many of them, maybe not the top ranking, but many of the members of the Illuminati, many of the elites, many of Freemasons, you know, you can call them occultists, you can call them Luciferians, which they are, but they're also extremely deceived. They're human beings who are born just like you and I, who have been grabbed on by the enemy and completely twisted into a tool of darkness, basically. And so understanding where they come from, you know, I've been looking into a lot of satanic ritual abuse survivors, and they help shed some understanding on sort of what it's like being in that group, how you're controlled, your mind is controlled, and the things that happen there. So that's really what I'm interested in right now, as well as other occult practices like chaos magic and things like that.
Awesome. And, you know, that's a good point that you bring up too. A lot of times that, you know, we demonize people. A lot of, you know, sometimes they deserve it, but we a lot of times I think we forget these are people. These are heavily deceived people, and we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. You know, there's a higher power at work there, and nobody's beyond redeemability. So how often do we pray for the people that we're speaking out against? So I mean, you bring up a really good point there.
Yeah, and you know, we're biblically called to be to understand the things going on around us, and to you know, anyways, you get it.
Yeah, totally. And you know, that's a really good point of view, you know, to have about the whole thing. All right, next question, again from Cindy. I said I wasn't going to say Cindy every time, but just because I am the way I am, I probably will. All right. She asks, this is a good question. Does he find his college education to have been helpful or was it more of an indoctrination program?
Well, I went to a Bible college. And so, maybe a secular person might say that a Bible college is an indoctrination program.
Can you tell us which one?
No.
Okay.
And so, my personal college experience, I value very highly. I did learn practical skills that I do use in my career. Probably wouldn't have a canary cry, might not have a radio show if I hadn't gone to school for the things that I did. Actually, Bible school really did open my eyes, not to doubt, but to question the theology that I was given throughout my life. We all grow up in a certain church or something, and we really get dug into those theologies, and you don't really question it. You just listen to the pastor, But I went to Bible school, and yeah, some people might say like, the Bible schools are corrupted because they're turning Christian kids they're making them question their faith. But that ended up being a wonderful thing for me. I had a couple professors who were like, hey, you learned this in church, right? No, that's completely wrong. That's false. And, you're not going to hell. It's not a salvation issue. But that theology is not actually biblically accurate. So for me, my college experience was very well received, and I appreciate it. Obviously, if I had gone to a, state university, it could have turned out differently.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the only reason I asked if you could tell us which one, not to try to identify you or anything, but because I went to Bible college too, and my experience was totally different. I wanted to see if we went to the same one, but I don't think we did, because
I think we talked about this at the conference, actually.
Yeah. My experience was pretty much the complete opposite. I think anybody who can go to, and I mean, there are good Bible colleges out there. There are good ones, and if you can go to one and they actually give you the truth and they actually teach you to question what you've been taught, not in the sense of like salvation or is Jesus Christ really the Savior or anything like that, but just to the sense of like, well, this is what the pastor taught you. Did you just take his word for it, or did you look into it? Go ahead.
And here's something to say as well. As far as colleges go, I think this is another perception thing. People think that colleges write curriculums, and they don't. It's the professors. It's the good professors that you find. I think there's a professor in every Bible college that will really mess with people's ingrained theologies. So I don't necessarily blame one college or another for being bad or good. I think it takes a professor, a Christian professor who's learned, and who is bold enough to step out and is not afraid of blowing people's minds, not afraid of the criticism, not afraid of that kind of stuff. So I think there is hope. And if you end up going to Bible college, latch onto those professors. You got to take some self-responsibility, people. Don't blame everything on the colleges or whatever. You have a choice to connect with the people that you want to connect with. And so if you get a professor or something, or you hear about a professor who's controversial because he's opening your mind in a biblical sense. Now, not saying like, obviously if a professor's saying some unbiblical things, don't latch on to that one. But if just because you're questioning certain aspects of your faith does not mean that you're going down a bad road.
Absolutely.
If a professor starts telling you that Jesus is an alien from Sirius, don't find a different guy, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything should line up with the Bible, but it not just in a personal interpretation kind of way, but in like solidified way.
Right.
And like that's something that my college experience. I took one semester and dropped out immediately. That was it. And then I never went back. I never went back to college. But I think all the stuff that I'm doing now is, it can prove, and that's something that like our country really does kind of drive this idea home, that if you want to have a good job or if you want to mean anything to anybody, you have to have a college diploma, or
I don't know. I would, at this point, I think people are starting to catch on that it's not necessarily the deal. I would say I'm going to recommend people try to go to college.
Yeah, yeah.
But keep a good head on your shoulders. Don't believe everything somebody tells you.
Yeah, you got to have good discernment about all that. Good deal. All right. All right. Cindy also asks, what's his field of work? Basil, what is your field of work?
I have a lot of fields of work. The most accurate description, I would say, would be entrepreneur, failing entrepreneur, albeit, but I do a lot of different things, mainly in media.
Fantastic. She also wants to, well, you already went through this, but if there's anything you have to add, how was he drawn to Jesus?
Yeah, I
we already
answered that.
Yeah, we already went through that. All right. Where does the church today have it wrong?
That's a really loaded question. That is a really loaded question. I'll change the question.
All right.
I would say, where is the church today still figuring it out?
There you go.
I'm not a fan of bashing churches. I'm not a fan of bashing the church. I'm not a fan of generalizing, deception throughout organized religion. You got to remember that spirituality is a individual practice, even in this what we call religion or organized system. For each person, it's different. But I would say mainly the body of Christ, I would urge them to work on trying to figure out a non-stereotypical way to say this.
Good luck.
Yeah. So love is a big term, all right? But I like to kind of group it all into the fruit of the Spirit. And I see this a lot on Facebook, which is people claiming to be Christians, claiming that what they're doing is correction and not being a crazy person, just being angry for no reason. But if you look at your life as an individual Christian, just start with Facebook posts. Go on Facebook. This is a good practice. If you're on Facebook and you're about to post something, whether it's a comment, status update, anything, if you're not exhibiting the fruits of the Spirit in everything that you do, then that's what you need to start working on. Forget about everything else. But if you don't have love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, if you're not self-control, come on, people, especially on Facebook, but everywhere. We get so obsessed with correcting people. We get obsessed with holding on to dogma. We get obsessed with criticizing other churches. We get obsessed with basically criticizing everybody. And I'm not saying this is everybody, but I'm saying for those of you having problems with this, everybody needs to go study the fruits of the Spirit and check that out. There's actually some great books on it. Maybe I'll give you a link to one later you can post.
Yeah, that would be great. And we tend to forget a lot. I think the whole speck and the log.
There is that, but I mean it within. The order of the fruits of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. It starts with love and it ends with self-control. I think if you just have those two, you can really kind of fill in the rest will just naturally happen.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's something I see a lot on Facebook and YouTube, and worse on YouTube. I don't know what it is about YouTube, but and I'm not saying just for the people that are viewing this on YouTube. I like 99.9999999% of my subscribers are awesome, and I love all you guys, even the ones that I don't agree with personally. I love all you guys, but of course, just as with anything else, there's always going to be some people that kind of come in and try to disrupt the whole thing. And I don't think that they're always consciously trying to do that, but they're also not consciously trying to figure out if they're doing that or not.
Right.
It takes some humility to kind of think, okay, if I'm gonna,
self-aware is what it takes.
Yeah, exactly. Like if I'm gonna bash this, and they don't look at it as bashing, so let's say correct. If I'm gonna harshly correct, this pastor or this researcher or something, now how is that gonna affect everybody that follows that person?
Yeah.
And where is that coming from? Why, like, okay, if I was going to do that, let's say, and I'm not like that. But if I was, like, if there was, well, actually, I haven't been shy about my opinions about Joel Osteen. So there's a good example. But even when on the rare occasion that he comes up, that's not like a big part of my ministry, Joel Osteen bashing or anything. But when it does come up, I give good reasons why I believe that people might want to rethink following him exclusively.
That's the biggest thing. I'm telling you, man, the key to changing people's minds, you cannot change people's minds. If you're on Facebook and somebody says they love Joel Osteen, you can't go on there and be like, and just go nuts on him. You can't tell them why they're wrong. What you want to do is point something out and ask them, is this something you agree with? Or have you looked into the biblical, references to this? Do you know what the Bible says about this? Let them do it. The fact of the matter is that you're not going to change anybody's minds by shouting at them. And especially if you're not exhibiting the fruits of the Spirit. If you're exhibiting all the fruits of the Spirit, they can't say no to you. You'll actually lead somebody into questioning their own beliefs or their own actions.
Yeah, absolutely. It's easier to change somebody into a researcher than to change their mind. And because I believe that, by nature, we all are built to be researchers. We have to be. We live in a fallen world. We need that. But and I wholeheartedly agree. When on the rare occasion that I ever have somebody who's like, and this is just an example for the audience. I'm not trying to. This is just an example that happened to pop up, but that are like Joel Osteen exclusive. It's easier for me to try to identify with that person first, and usually that's why I believe our testimonies are so important, because everybody that I've come across and have been able to help in some way or another, there's never been a time that I haven't been able to relate, or they haven't been able to relate to some part of my testimony, or I haven't been able to relate to theirs. There's a reason that we go through those things, and we can use that as kind of like a springboard into some other areas. But now it would be easy for me to just bash Joel Osteen. I mean, God knows he gives enough material for it. It would be easy to take that approach. But how many people is that really going to help? Because the issue is persecution. The people that, if I go and bash Joel Osteen to somebody who's Joel Osteen exclusive, they're going to feel persecuted. They're going to feel like they're fulfilling their role biblically as a Christian, and they're going to be even more entrenched in their beliefs because they're being persecuted for it. So there's the proof that they're on the right track. So there's that whole area to think about too. But instead of doing that, if I learn how to love people and have patience with people and learn that love is the most important thing, like Paul said, and think, okay, I love this person. I don't want them to be unprepared or go down the wrong path or whatever. I want to help them as much as I can. And then I present the information after getting to know them a little bit. And, I present it in a way that I think they might be able to accept. At least then it's their choice. At least then they can say, they've been given the information in a way that they can handle. Then it's up to them if they're going to choose it or not, because we still do have free will. Now, if they don't choose to listen to me, I'm not responsible. I think that's another part too, is that we all feel this crushing responsibility for our brethren and keeping them on the right track. I'm not responsible for that. I'm responsible for being a light. I'm not responsible for forcing their eyes open. That's going to be up to them. So there's a lot of different areas to look at with that, but you said it better than I did. I just kind of went on a I just kind of went on a tangent.
I know. I think we're on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, next question. So that's where the church has it wrong. Okay, Basil, if you were to meet Jesus today, what would you guys talk about?
I would ask him about, we might go on a little time traveling journey, a time travel road trip with Jesus. That's like, I would love doing that.
Absolutely.
Because I want to go explore some of the, what are called alternate histories, which are, things like, oh, the Illuminati was broken up in 1776. Was it? I'd like to go time travel with Jesus and watch some things happen like that. All sorts of stuff.
That's awesome. I think I'd have the same answer too. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Cindy also asks, at the end of your life, Basil, really uplifting topic. At the end of your life, what would you want others to say that you were all about?
That's a really good question.
That is a good question. I think that, honestly, I think there's a lot more that is profound in there than I think was really intended. But how often do we ask ourselves that? What kind of legacy do we like? So what's the Basil legacy?
Yeah. I'll say, not that I want to be known or have a specific sort of weight in being remembered, but I would hope that during my life, I would have been able to let people know that whether they're Christian or not Christian, that there's always a way to be better. That even if you're a Christian, there's a way to show Jesus better than you are doing it, because we're just human. And when we open our eyes to the fact that maybe we're not perfect, then and that we can excel in showing Christ's love better, again, exhibiting the fruits of the Spirit in everything we do, and not necessarily forcing people to be better, but if they would have learned from me, or the things that I do, that you can open your mind and be better at anything you do, then that would be great. I just want people to get some good stuff out of me. And I think when you're really able to hunker down, look at yourself and ask yourself, the old maxim, what would Jesus do in that situation? And that's great. And no, I will say to all you people on Facebook, Jesus would not always whip people with his belt.
Yeah, no kidding.
He did that once, and every single day people are like, yeah, well, Jesus whipped people with his belt. That's the only reason I'm correcting you. I need to get the money changers out of the church. I'm like, yeah, well, come on. You said a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh man, yeah, I've seen all those memes, and I know exactly what you mean. It's or what I love is I don't love, but when people like, and again, this is like a rare thing, but it's like when it happens, it's like it's in the forefront. When a Christian will use a lot of profanity, and then they'll say, well, Jesus called the Pharisees vipers and whitewashed tombs, so I should be able to say any number of just horrendous things. What?
Yeah, exactly. So that was a pretty deep question. That was kind of intense. But yeah, you're never Christ-like until you are, and you won't be for a while. So there's always a better way to do it.
Amen. I couldn't agree with you more. And we all have, we're all on a path. We all have more that we can learn. And may we never fall into a place in our lives where we think that we're there, we've arrived, we have it, and everybody else can learn from us. Even when I'm, God forbid I ever live this long, but even if I'm like 80 years old, I still want to be humble and have enough humility to be able to learn from a 20-year-old or a 15-year-old. I mean, we should be able to hold on to that. This is kind of a follow-up question to that, but she also asked, what would you want on your tombstone?
Oh, yikes. I don't know if I want a tombstone. I want to have my remains scattered over the ocean. Not ashes, but like I want to put a big meat grinder on
like
the back
body
of the
parts,
speedboat,
like arms, and
then just throw my body into it and just speed out into the ocean and just feed me to the fish.
Oh man, most unique funeral ever. What would your family think? I gotta grind my son up. Like,
they would be parasailing behind the boat. So here's the boat. This is them parasailing like this. And then these are my remains splashing out to the ocean. And then there's like sharks coming up because it's basically chum. So they're parasailing over sharks. And they're like, this is awesome. Grandpa or dad or grandpa dad or whatever it is.
Grandpa dad.
He died and now we're parasailing over a horde of sharks because he donated his body to this awesome experience. If you can leave your family with an experience like that, what else is there?
Horde of sharks. Is that what a group of sharks is called? A horde?
They will be talking about that for the rest of their lives.
I'm going to be talking about it for the rest of my life. Oh my gosh, Cindy, I cannot thank you enough for the questions. I thought I had some creative ideas for my funeral, but I can't top that. I have been outdone.
There you go.
Oh man, fantastic. I gotta do my job and get to the next question. I can't.
You're welcome.
Oh, thank you, Basil. All right, and thank you, Cindy. All right, so we're on to Melissa now. She had a couple of questions. All right, let me compose myself. Most ridiculous. You know what my cherubim chariots was for Canary Cry? That's going to be this for the sharpening
Sounds
report.
good to me. I had a legacy I had to live up to here.
Absolutely. You got to do it. All right. So Melissa writes in. All right. This is actually a good question. I would like to know who is his favorite guest other than Josh Peck. She wrote that. I didn't put that in there. Who was his favorite guest and why?
Oh man. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can pick favorites.
Hard to choose.
I'll do a couple categories. Yeah, there've been so many at this point.
How about like a few of your favorites?
Yeah. Mike Heiser, I liked a lot.
Yeah.
Mike Heiser is awesome, and I like him. And we have another, just spoiler here. There's another episode with Mike Heiser that will come out after episode 100.
Nice.
And he's a fun guy. He's one of those like pretty, he can be pretty stoic professor type.
He's got a good sense of humor.
But if you get him in the right mood, he's a funny guy. Dr. Future, obviously, was a real fun guest. He's just down to play as well. I hope that all of my favorites aren't just because they're fun people, but that's kind of tends to be the way to go because everybody has awesome information.
Yeah.
There's a lot of awesome information, a lot of great guests who've brought on some great revelation and research. But those are a couple favorites. I really liked the Karen Hughes episode, our Homo capensis, mainly because that was the first and only time that we've been hung up on. So that was fun. But I don't know, that might be a favorite episode moment rather than guest. You and Natalina are great. Trying to think if I can figure out a favorite. I don't think I can.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, if I, not that she asked me this question or anything, but I wouldn't be able to choose. Because everyone's really great in their own way. I mean, we wouldn't have a guest on if they weren't.
Right. Exactly.
There are people that if we were going to have on the show or something and it's just going to be a dud, then there's no point. We have guests on that we like, but it's tough to choose. I mean, Mark Flynn, obviously.
Mark Flynn was great.
Yeah,
he's Mark Flynn on as well.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that that happened because he doesn't do a whole lot of interviews, but when he does, he just knocks it out of the park. I mean, it's amazing. Michael Heiser, obviously, and I've had him on a couple of times, and both times have been great. Man, the cool thing is both you and I mean, you guys got started way before I did, but we're both reaching our 100th episode right around the same time. I'm going to release mine for the sharpening report right on New Year's because it just happened to be that, from the switch to 2015 to 2016. And I'll tell the audience too, oh man, have we got a 100th episode planned. I can't say too much about it, but I do want to at least try to.
Oh yeah, Josh? Josh? Well, just so all Josh's listeners know, Canary Cry Radio has an awesome episode 100 planned.
Tell us about it.
Well, actually, by the time this airs, it's already out.
Well, maybe people
that is better.
Maybe people that haven't heard of you or haven't had a chance to listen to it. So what's in store for the 100th episode of Canary Cry?
Well, I really opened up a can of worms because I can't really. It's top secret right now.
Yeah, but by the time this airs, it'll already be over with, right?
Oh yeah, that's true. Okay, so our 100th episode, we attempted to have the world record holding podcast for most guests in a single podcast. So we bring on a ton of people. We've been working on it for weeks. I guess by the time this airs, it's out. Go listen to it. We've got all the greats. Not everybody's there, but we got a lot of people. It's a lot of fun, and you get a lot of information in one podcast, and it's great because it's almost like a hub. You can listen to it, hear something, and we'll give you the resources right there to go learn more about it. And it's going to be a great dispersion, diaspora of information.
So I know you probably don't know now because you guys probably at the time of this recording it's December 6th. So still pretty early compared to when this will be released. But where you guys are at now, what's the Guinness record situation? Are you guys close, or was there even a category for that? Or
yeah, we won't know. It takes something like 12 weeks to actually figure it out. So we'll give an update.
All right, fantastic.
Because we're not going to know until maybe March of 2016.
Fantastic. Yeah, good deal. So for the listeners, if you haven't, by the time this airs, because it's going to be a little later, check it out. It's probably already out. So and it's
probably fantastic.
Yeah, I've had a very small piece of it, and I can tell you at least that part is perfect. So
yeah, Josh, you're on it. See, there you go.
Absolutely. And like I said on your show and everything, it was, we joke around a lot, but it was a true honor. You guys deserve it. It's fantastic. And that's just, it's great. There's not enough that could be said about it. All right, Melissa, we'll get back to her. She also wants to know, who has been the most challenging guest and why?
As of the airing of this podcast, I would say Karen Hudis was
the one that you got hung up on. To those who might not have heard that, what was the whole story behind that?
So basically, she came on the show with a partner. Lord help me, I can't remember his name. But it was a great episode. Go listen to it. And she her theory is that Homo capensis, which is an earlier version of human being, has survived, didn't evolve or whatever, just the cone heads. It's her explanation of the cone heads. And is ruling the world. Basically, they are at the top of the food chain, ruling the world. They rule the Illuminati and things like that. And so the problem was she's sort of a pseudo believer in some ways, but very much not in other ways. And so she did hang up on me because I was just trying to see if she could see a similarity between the story of the Nephilim and the story of her Homo capensis. And she was unable or unwilling to admit that there was even a literary similarity between the two. And she got very frustrated with me and ended up terminating the call. We finished out the episode with her partner who was there and finished the interview.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, people should check that out. Very interesting episode. And was that a first for you on Canary Cry? Have you ever been hung up on before?
No, that was the first one. We've gotten, we make it a point not to argue with people.
Yeah,
we're not
same
there
here.
to argue with them. We're not there to prove that they're wrong. If they're on, it's because we believe they're on to something. And even if we don't agree with them, we just ask questions. And that's simply
right.
what I was doing. And no, that was the first and only time so far that I've been angrily hung up on.
Yeah, that's awesome that you handle your show like that, because that's how I handle mine as well. There are times that I have, if I handled the sharpening report to where like only people that agree with me on everything can come on, I would have no guests. It would just be me. I mean, that's just the kind of world we live in. We don't know everything.
Yeah. And if there's any Karen Hudas fans out there listening, I apologize if at this point I'm not expressing her theories exactly right. It was a long time ago that the episode happened, and I have not listened to it recently. Her theories are something close to what I mentioned, but if I'm not getting all the details right, you can send all your emails to Josh Peck, and he will answer you.
Yeah, I will answer you. All right. Yeah, and sometimes it is hard to remember. I mean, especially doing 100 episodes. And like I kind of touched on before, that is kind of cool that our 100th episodes are kind of falling around even in the same month like that.
Yeah. You, us, and Conspiranormal.
Yeah.
All have our 100th episode in the same month.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, and I mean, I started way after you guys were already established, and I remember, like I said at the top of the show, I remember when I got the invite to be on Canary Cry Radio. That was a huge deal for me, and still is. I'm not saying that it's not a huge deal anymore, but
right.
it's a little different when you get to know the people, and But at the time, I mean, I was blown away. I was like, what do these guys want to talk to me about? What do I want? I had only been on the radio maybe twice at that point. Right. Maybe. And one person, like the first radio interview I did was on Doug Hamp's radio show, and I had already knew him, so that we already had a ton of phone conversations and stuff. So that. Do you
remember the first thing I said to you off the air when we got on the line?
No.
I said, "Baby, I'm gonna make you a star."
And it's happened.
Can't believe you don't remember that.
Well, it's been a long time, and we get busy.
You got so big, you forgot the people who got you there, baby.
Yeah, I know, and like I'm sure by the time this has aired, this is probably already out. Well, it is already out now. I don't know how large scale it is, but I honestly, you guys gave me like you did give me a platform to speak, and that led to so many different things. I mean, my wife and I just got offered jobs to Skywatch TV. I mean, we're moving to Missouri. Like we're gonna be. We're only in our, like, I'm 31. My wife's 29. We're really young. We're going to be able to be in full-time ministry now. Dream come true. So,
amen, brother.
Yeah, and I mean, if it wasn't for everything that you guys have done, and that all the other shows have been on, that everybody has done to help us and give us advice, Gons has given me a bunch of advice, and I've learned a lot from listening to you too. If it wasn't for all that, I wouldn't be here today. So,
well, God bless you, man. We're happy for you. We're real happy for you, and we're excited to watch you on the big screen, buddy.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. I can't get into details well, I mean, not that I've been sworn to secrecy or, there's nothing like that.
You gotta figure it out. I know the business is.
Yeah, I just don't know what's appropriate and what's not. But I can say that, oh man, there are some great ideas floating around. Not all mine. It's the next couple of years is going to be mind blowing. We should get back to the questions, though.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about myself.
This is Basil time.
That's right. All right. So, So Melissa, she had one more question. Who would be your ultimate bucket list guest and why? If you could have anybody on your show, who would it be and why?
You mean besides Jesus Christ?
Yeah, I think so.
I think Jesus Christ would be. I think he'd be funny. He'd be informative. He'd be warm and passionate. Besides Jesus, ultimate podcast guest.
Tough to choose.
Yeah, I would say.
Let's say like top 5 or top 3. Like, are there a few that you have in mind?
Yeah, well, she's probably thinking within like the fringe Christian realm, and
probably like anybody like alive today or something.
Yeah. Steve Quayle would be nice.
Yeah.
We're gonna do that. We need to get him on. But if in my wildest dreams, I'd like to get somebody like Obama on and just ask him what the deal is.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know what I would right now at this very moment? Putin. Vladimir Putin.
Oh, there you go. That's a really good choice.
Yep. If I had to make a choice right now, I'd like to get Vladimir Putin on the podcast and see if he'd tell us some good stuff.
What would you ask him if like, let's say just in an alternate universe where something like that was possible and you invited him on and he spoke English and you were able to communicate with him, if you could ask him, like, if he was like, hey, I'm going to be on your show, but I'll only answer 3 questions. Right on the spot. What would you ask?
These are so hard, Josh.
I know.
My gosh. Well, I would straight up ask him, I might not use the word Illuminati, but I would ask him, is the Illuminati real? What's your involvement? What is it like? Tell me everything about it. Just to see if he would answer.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of at least the perception that we have of Putin at this point in history is he's kind of a maverick kind of guy going off on doing his, like, doesn't care about other people's foreign policy or anything. So I'd give him the chance to come clean on the Illuminati. Then I would ask him about what's the biggest secret that his country is keeping, and I would ask him to tell the biggest secret about another country that he knows.
There you go.
I would just let that roll.
Yeah, that's a good choice. See, I never would have thought of that. Like, I thought when I read questions, I think, how would I answer? I thought, okay, I could ask the Pope, hey, did Jesus come in the flesh? And just see what happens. Just see.
Right.
But like, if I would love to have Steve Quayle's obviously. I mean, I'd love to have him on the show sometime, and I believe that is a possibility. Chuck Missler, I'd love to. I have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah.
Honestly, a lot of people might disagree with me on this, but Alex Jones, I'd really like to talk.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to him. You know, and that's not saying that I necessarily agree with everything, but I think there's enough there that there's some common ground. I think it would be a good conversation, and you know, I don't hate the guy. I mean, I don't know him. You know, I haven't seen every episode of InfoWars or anything like that.
At least ask him. At least ask him to see if you know, ask him if that's his real voice or if he like purposefully does that.
He's got a cool voice. Yeah, it's part of the reason I like listening to him. But yeah, so yeah, Alex Jones, Steve Quayle, Chuck Missler, Tom Horn. You know, that might sound kind of silly now, but you know,
I think you might be able to swing that one.
Maybe, you know, we'll see. I'd love to. I'd love to have a Tom Horn episode of the Sharpening Report. Would we say top 5? So I'd have to pick
top
another
3, but you can keep going.
Oh well, I already far surpassed that. Then I'll just say as my 5th one, you know, Basil Rosewater again.
There we go.
Because I don't want this to be an isolated incident. I'd love to have you on the show again. All right, so that was all of Melissa's questions. Rhonda asks. I don't know how much this is. Well, maybe this is just a good reflection of what the perception is in the public. But Rhonda asks, I've noticed Gon seems to be leaning more towards flat Earth theory now. I don't think he is, but you know, this is just, you know, like I said, probably what the perception is out there. Maybe, I don't know. Is Basil on the same page or not? So I think just the basic overall theory. You know, what do you think about flat Earth?
Well, I will say Gons and I are both still exploring it. Neither of us are leaning either way. It's an ongoing exploration for us. You know, we constantly get information thrown at us from dozens of sources.
Yep.
Because some people believe that it is the most important subject to ever be on a podcast or anything. So we do get that a lot. We did do a flat Earth thing. Honestly, in my opinion, a lot of, and we said this in our last live stream, and that is, you know, a lot of the evidence or information coming out is very fascinating. I have not reproduced all of the experiments myself. I find it frustrating because a lot of people who push the flat Earth thing are obviously not science-minded people.
Yeah.
And they, you know, they're sort of just regurgitating something that they saw on YouTube without, you know, comparing it to even known undisputed scientific information. Which, to be fair, the global Earth used to be considered undisputable, you know, scientific information. So, you know, I'm really keeping an open mind on the flat Earth thing, but I'm not taking a stance on it.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I've pretty much, you know, I've said I'm a globe guy, you know, but honestly, when I first heard of the flat Earth idea, I had high hopes that like this is a cool theory. Like before all the controversy and before all the negativity came into it, when I first heard of it, I kind of thought it might be the next like Hollow Earth thing. You know, Hollow Earth, it's a great theory. I think there are things in there that are true, and it's not really, nobody really gets too upset about that. You know, I mean, there's always going to be people here and there, but overall, it's not like it's going to, you know, go ahead.
Well, that's the amazing thing is you have a theory come out called the Hollow Earth. Some people believe it, some don't, where the Earth is hollow and has another sun type thing inside of it and beings living basically on the inside wall of the Earth, like a whole nother planet, and have giants and Nazis and all this stuff. And, you know, people are like, oh, that's a very interesting thing. I believe it or I don't believe it, and it's very interesting. But as soon as the Earth is not a ball, it's like, salvation depends on the shape of this rock flying through space, you know? And, I mean, we literally have people tell us, you know, once you get the flat Earth, once you accept the flat Earth, Jesus is a given. You know, they have this line of logic that does that. And I personally don't see that. I believe Jesus is a given, whether the Earth is a globe or flat. Anyways, I don't get upset at the theory of the flat Earth. I'm totally open to checking out the evidence for that. I do get upset about the way some people go about proclaiming the flat Earth.
Yeah, same
and not
here.
Anyways, you're getting me a little riled up. But yeah.
Oh no, me too. That's what this show is all about. And I'm telling you, same here. If you're going to be a part of a group that believes a certain thing that's controversial, you got to represent that group well. And you're not going to be able to do that with hatred and insults. And that goes on both sides. Globe too.
I will say that a lot of the flat Earth groups don't have a lot of good PR. Mm-hmm. Not because of the theory, but just because of the people representing it and the way that they do it. I mean, not the people. The people are great. God bless them.
Sure.
But a lot of the ways that flat Earth is being presented, I get upset at because I'm a science-minded guy.
Me too.
So I like to hear. I mean, and there have been some incredible pieces of scientific information that come out that do make me think, that it's actually a credible theory. That's the only reason I'm even talking about it right now.
Yeah.
Is because there is some incredible information. The sad part is that there's also a lot of very, very wrong information and a very presentations that don't take in just basic fundamentals.
Yeah, and that makes us wonder, as researchers, because we're always looking for the bottom line. Who's behind all this and why? What's the motivation behind this? And that leaves us, when I get and I don't. It's not like I love to use the term flat earther or anything, but it's just the term that's out there, and people can call me globe earther or whatever. If that's fine. But when I get like a certain person who believes in the flat earth theory, who comes at me with a lot of accusations and a lot of anger and a lot of, that makes me look at the fruit of that theory, because that's the first thing that I look for in anything, if I'm going to believe it or not, is what's the fruit.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen now, and that doesn't mean that everyone's, there is some fruit in the flat earth theory that is pretty good. I've had really loving people come to me and they just want to offer another way of looking at it. But the overwhelming majority of people who contact me about this thing, it's spiteful. It's like I say one thing on one of my episodes about it or something, I need to go nuts over it. It's just so full of anger and hatred, and it's like I can't get behind something like that. It's like nobody on the globe Earth side of it. People on the globe Earth who react to flat earthers, they might be insulting. Some of them, a lot of them do.
Well, here's the thing: is flat earthers have to realize that they're fighting against centuries of conditioning. You have to have that mindset while you're doing this. You can't get angry just because some person who's been conditioned literally their entire life that the Earth is a globe. You just gotta talk to you gotta know who you're talking to. You gotta know your audience.
Yeah, it's a lot like how we witness to somebody. When we witness to somebody, this person never knew Jesus. We're not gonna blame them for that. We're not gonna come down on them in anger and all these negative things. When we witness to somebody, we do it out of love, because it's the most effective way to get somebody to accept Christ, but it's the right way, because that's what God is. I would think any theory that's actually true and right is just going to have that natural love about it. So that's to me, and I'm saying everybody that sends me flat earth stuff, because I get it every day, that's the main reason that I just don't look into it anymore, because I can't deal with the negativity. It's too much. I thought it was a really cool theory, honestly, just like Hollow Earth, and I'm really open to that idea. But when it comes to flat, I cannot deal with all the negativity. I got too much other stuff going on. It's just, I think anything of God that's really God inspired, why would it have that attached to it? No matter what science says. And they seem to be about that, throw the science out.
Yeah. You know why?
Why?
Because Jesus whipped people with his belt. That's why. All right, buddy? If Jesus were here, he'd be beating you over the head with flat Earth.
And you know, and like I've always said, flat Earth might be true. You know, I'm open to the possibility. Yeah, it's interesting. That's how I wanted to look at it, and I still want to look at it like that. You know, I want to think like just like Hollow Earth. This is a really interesting idea. What if? You know, I'm always really enamored with the what if. You know, I love thinking like that. But the flat Earth stuff, it's just it's getting hard for me to think like that with, because it's just not fun anymore. It's divisive, unfortunately. You know, I don't know. There's we could do a whole show on that, I guess, and I wouldn't be able to ever properly communicate how I'm feeling about it. I respect flat earthers. I respect globe earthers or sphere earthers or whatever. I respect everybody for whatever belief they have, you know, under the canopy of Christianity and all that. I would not be surprised if I died, went to heaven, spoke with Jesus, and he said, "Yeah, the earth was flat all along." Boy, you had it wrong. Whoops. Right. You know, that could happen. I wouldn't be surprised by that. But just because of all the negativity that's surrounding it, I don't want anything to do with it anymore. I just kind of done.
There you go. Amen.
All right. So on that happy note.
All right. Give me more questions.
Yeah. Oh, actually, that was the end of it. That was the last viewer question. Well, I'll take the last viewer question. I love, you know, obviously I love my own show, you know, but I love the guests that we have on. So I want to know what is in the future for Canary Cry and for Basil Rosewater. What do we have to look forward to?
Well, for Canary Cry, obviously we're going to keep doing podcasts. At this point, well, at the time this is airing, we've got 100 episodes out, and we've got more in the can. So we should be a little bit more stable here. Oh, my cat is attacking here. As for me, this is a good time.
Nice.
Oh, hi. He gets so irritated because I put him in front of cameras and lights and computers all the time. He's just
cats usually love that stuff. My cat lays on my keyboard every night.
Yeah. So this is Monty, and he's actually my co-host in a new YouTube channel that I've started.
Yes, tell us all about that, because you told me a little bit before the show. I'm blown away. I think this is, just for the audience, I sign off on this. I think this is such a needed thing, and it does kind of go with what we've been talking about pretty much all night with all these different ideas and everything. But right. I'm giving you the floor. Go ahead. Tell us all about this. Okay, so sounds good. I have a new YouTube channel. And it's called The Joyspiracy Theory. The Joyspiracy Theory. And it's obviously on YouTube. And what I wanted to do, you know, when I started doing Canary Cry Radio and getting into all this crazy stuff, you know, when you learn that the world is ruled by an elite group of Luciferians and they control everything, like I said earlier, you know, it tends to get a little bit depressing. And so, and so about, you know, 6 months into doing Canary Cry Radio, I was getting depressed. I was getting some anxiety, paranoia, just sadness, feeling helpless about everything, you know. It just was really in a bad place. And I feel like that's a place that a lot of people find themselves in when they start looking at sort of this fringe stuff. It's just a very natural reaction. And I think that's where a lot of this lashing out comes from on Facebook and calling people shills and getting, you know, lawsuits. We've seen lawsuits. And, you know, it's just generally been just had a bad rap. You know, it's hard on the human brain. So I've decided to start a YouTube channel called The Joyspiracy Theory, and it's you know, it's for fringe people. And what it is I don't know, it's kind of like a self-help life coaching, just happiness club. You go there, you're going to watch the videos, you're going to get happy, you're going to get different ways to look at the world. We're going to have some exercises on how to, you know,
start feeling better, being happier, being kinder, exhibiting the fruits of the Spirit, really living a Christ-filled, joyful life in the wake of all this dark, scary stuff going on. You know, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, and you know, it just seems to be what's needed right now. And so I thought I'd take it upon myself to start this YouTube channel, and hopefully I'll be working with some people in the future. I'm in talks with some people about doing some articles and some videos and things, and really just everybody can get together and you know, find some hope and some joy and some love in the world, because that's what we're called to do. That's what we're supposed to be doing. You know, we're supposed to exhibit the fruits of the Spirit. We're also supposed to expose darkness, and how can we do that without knowing about it? But those two things tend to live in opposition when it comes to the human brain. And so right here in the middle is where I'm hoping the Joyspiracy theory will live and help people bridge those two things, and really continue to be happy and joyful and love life and love other people, at the same time still having the knowledge and the passion and the research for, you know, the secrets behind the veil here.
Absolutely. And I mean, I am 100% behind that. You know, that really fulfills the need. And, you know, I'm hoping that in a short amount of time, when somebody finds somebody on Facebook or YouTube who wants to bash something or just has a negative attitude because of the things that they've come to realize as truth, hopefully they'll be able to link your channel. You said something about articles. Is this is there going to be a website? Is this like the start of a new ministry?
Yeah, well, there's going to be the YouTube channel, and then there will be just a general. Well, there is a YouTube channel, and there is just kind of a general purpose website. You know, right now I'm just going to do the videos, do the Facebook page, try to connect all these people, try to create a community of happy, joyful, fringe people who are not going out and just making a mess of the place, that can really bring some actual, you know, goodness to the situation here. We're going to build that community, and then, you know, I'm hoping in the future, if it catches on, if people find that it has value to them, if it helps people, you know, expand into doing other things.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, like I said, I'm behind that effort 100%. If there's anything that I can do in the future to help you guys, let me know. So if people want to know more about you or your ministry or your work, that was my last question, wasn't it? I already asked you.
No, that's good. Well, no, because
well, let us know. I mean, we talked about the YouTube channel, but let us know where people can find Canary Cry. And I for the audience, at the time of this recording, it's kind of tricky because this is before the YouTube channel actually is active. But by the time this is out there,
by the time this airs, you can go to youtube.com. Search the Joyspiracy Theory, or youtube.com/the Joyspiracy Theory. Go to the Joyspiracytheory.com, the Joyspiracytheory.com. Go to Facebook, the Joyspiracy Theory, like the page, and obviously Canary Cry Radio, canarycryradio.com, Canary Cry Radio Facebook page, and on iTunes and Stitcher and all those podcast places.
Fantastic. And if you, when you get this up, if you give me the links, I will put them in the show description. So check the show description for the audience. So if you had to wrap, I mean, we talked about so many things. I mean, this has been a phenomenal episode. If you had to somehow wrap up everything into a final thought, what would you want most the audience to take away from this episode?
I would say that your relationship with Jesus Christ and your responding theology to that relationship should always be in a state of growth and or change, because you'll never have it all the way locked down. And if you're in a place where you're happy right now, there's still more to go. You can always get closer. You can always exhibit more of the fruits of the Spirit. And until every single action that you take is exhibiting love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and gentleness and self-control, and if I forgot one, that one too. Until every action you take and every word you speak is exhibiting that fruit, there's still more to go, and that's good news. That's good news, and there are steps you can take to work on that, and I think that's how we're going to do it.
Amen, man. I could not agree with you more. That is, man, you should be a writer. I'm telling you, I have so much trouble articulating any viewer of this show knows I have trouble articulating my thoughts, too well. But I mean, you just hit it out of the park. That's absolutely it's beautiful. It's honest. It's true. It's something I think we can all, as honest Christians, get behind. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. This has been an absolute blast. I know that we planned this by now over a year ago, but it is well worth the wait. I can't thank you enough for coming on. Would you like to come on again sometime?
Absolutely, man. I'm available whenever you want me on.
Fantastic. Well, again, I can't thank you enough for coming on, and hang on the line. Let me close this out here. That, again, for the audience, was Basil Rosewater, a co-host of Canary Cry Radio, alongside with Gan Shimura, another very good friend of the show. And as I said at the top of the show, anyone who likes the Sharpening Report undoubtedly will love Canary Cry. So make sure that you check them out. Now, if you'd like to find more episodes of the Sharpening Report, you can do so at ministudyministry.com and my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Josh Peck Disclosure. Make sure to subscribe and share. Also, if you care to help support Mini Study Ministry, you can do so at ministudyministry.com. Your donations go to the everyday running of Mini Study Ministry and help bring you more episodes of the Sharpening Report, as well as more books and other materials. And as I say on every episode, I'll say again, only donate if you feel led by God to donate. If you don't feel led to do so, or even if you're not sure, that's totally fine. You can always pray for us. That's something anybody can do. It's free and helps us out a lot. So we're not 501c3, not that we're against it or anything. We're just not. So your donations are not tax deductible. And I'm never going to be the kind of person that's going to promise extra blessings from God or a tenfold return on your money or anything like that. We're not in the business of making promises for God. But what I can promise is that your help, be it prayer or financial, it's greatly appreciated. It keeps us going and is the only reason we're able to continue doing what we do. So, all that being said, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight on The Sharpening Report. I am your host, Josh Peck, and as always, take care and God bless.